How are you feeling at the end of that?
Yeah, look, the same way I feel at the end of every trial, which is exhilarating. I mean, obviously, it was a great win, very emotional for him, for me, for all of us, but also exhausted beyond exhaustion. When you do a trial like that, especially a 5-week trial, and Lisa really seriously just sleep like 2 hours,
Yes.
if that. And then every day is especially in that case, was a constant war, a battle, with that prosecutor, with Lewin, who
Oh,
just every day had a new whining complaint every day into the courtroom. And it was such a personal thing. And it really was not, there was no pleasantries going in there every day. So it took a lot. Obviously the end result made it all worthwhile. And I knew that was going to happen, but it was draining. It was draining. And now, I'm right back in the saddle and on to other things.
so you say you knew that was going to happen. I mean, obviously, from a peanut gallery, from our point of view, it would have been an outrageous result if the jury had come to any other decision other than not guilty on both counts. Was there some element at all, some level of concern for you that maybe they wouldn't, or no, you were absolutely positive?
Look, this is my 120th jury trial. I used to be a prosecutor. I've done defense work now for a long time. And I got to tell you, you never know with a jury. It's like reading tea leaves when you try. But I also know how the case went in. I know that we eviscerated their only complaining witness in this case, right? This Relly guy was, he was what I call a glorious train wreck. There was no meat left on the bone there. I mean, it was totally rendered incredible. Their case detective became our best witness. He helped us.
Yes.
So
of course, yes.
exactly. So there was really nothing there that made me think they came close to proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I was confident about that. And then at the end of my summation, when I put up those 10 questions, which were questions that were unanswerable, but if they were able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, they should have been able to answer them simply, clearly, articulately, convincingly. And I said, they'll do that if they've proven their case. But if they haven't proven their case, if the case is transparent, they'll ignore them. And sure enough, Lewin played right into my hand and ignored them. And I saw the jury writing, those questions down. So when that happened, to me, it was pretty good. And what you guys didn't see on television was the jury. And so when
Yes.
I'm to that jury for 5 hours plus, and they're on the edge of their seats for 5 hours plus, I know I'm connecting with them. At the end, there was an emotional moment for me, which happens at times when I, thank the family for putting their trust in me, or when I looked and, thank the client, Rocky in this case. And I turned around to look at Rihanna and thank her, the family. And I see her bawling, like she was just crying. And it hit me like I wasn't ready for that. And it just got me where I had a lump in my throat and I couldn't really speak for about 30 seconds. And I looked at a jury and they could see what was going on with me. And 2 of the jurors started welling up and crying. And that's a good thing when you have that interaction with a jury and when they're feeling that emotion, it's a good thing. So that being said, you still never know. All right.
Right.
But when you have 4 weeks of testimony and you have a 3-hour verdict in a case like this, there's no question. It's most likely a defense verdict. Okay. That's just the way it goes. We all thought that. So when they came back with a 3-hour verdict, which I later learned was about a 30-minute verdict, I spoke to jurors, many jurors now, and
Yes.
they were 11-1 within the first minute of deliberations. First minute, 11-1. There was one juror who wanted to hear a little more, and went back and forth.
Wow.
The defense exhibit. They had lunch. That took a nice hour and 20 minutes, and then they have a verdict. So it was really a short deliberation. That was a quick verdict. So the system worked.
Yes.
But the only time, I got to be honest with you, I'll tell you a funny story. The time I was truly worried, the only time was during the reading of the verdict, during the deliberation, or during when the jury came out. And the judge did something that's never happened to me before. And I love Judge Arnold. He's a great guy.
We do too.
He took the verdict forms. And look, I knew he liked Rocky, and I thought he appreciated our case. And he got the verdict forms first. And he looked at the verdicts and he frowned in a particularly very, animated
way.
Thank you, Lisa. Animated way. And I saw the frown on his face. I was like, That's weird. Why would he be making that face? And then he did something that's never happened to me before, which is he said, have the jury confirm this verdict. Now, that only happens normally after the verdict is read.
Yes.
You confirm a verdict after it's read, number one. Number two, you only, and then this is 120 jury trials and I've tried cases in courts throughout the country, you only have a jury confirm a verdict upon a guilty verdict. When there's a not guilty, the jury doesn't need to confirm the verdict. It's not guilty.
No.
But when you're convicting somebody of a serious crime, you want to see the jurors confirm and stand by that verdict. Dogs are adorable, by the way.
They torture.
No, they're the best. Dogs are the best. But anyway,
Yeah.
So when he said confirm that verdict and he looked all perplexed, there was a moment, my wires in my head were just not, figuring out what's going on here. I was a little confused. I looked at my partner, Chad, and I said, Chad, what's going on? Why are they doing this here? You asked Sarah, our local attorney, our local counsel. I said, ask Sarah if this is what they do here. I see Chad lean over to Sarah, and I'm watching this like very carefully, and I see her shake her head vigorously. No. She goes, no, they don't do this here. And I just can't process right now, Lisa. The wires in my brain are just like crisscrossing and everything's going on.
Right.
Rocky is picking up this vibe and he whispers into my ear. He goes, oh shit. I grabbed him. I said, no. It's cool. I'm thinking, I'm holding him just in case something crazy.
Yes, we saw.
But I'm thinking, who's holding me? Like, because I'm but I just I cannot believe this. How could this be? And I'm looking at the jury and they were all, there was no, emotion coming out of their faces. And they looked dead serious and they were confirming that verdict. And I was like, oh boy, like, how could this be? Like in less than 3 hours. And then they give it to the clerk, Alex. And he reads it and he says, it goes to the announcement of the name of the case, the state of California, the indictment number.
Oh,
then he says,
agonizing.
Find the defendant, Raheem Mayers. And he stops. And I'm like, watching him now. At this point, I can't even take it anymore. I'm like, did he have a stroke? What's going on? He stopped. He did that for effect. Then we get not guilty. Boom. And then Rocky's gone, and that's still another count. And I'm still staring at him waiting for that second count. And then it was a second not guilty count. But I said to the judge subsequently,
sir, excuse me, sir.
What's that all about? And he said, no. I read the verdicts. I get the verdicts confirmed before the reading of the verdict, because once I had a gang case where a defendant got so upset when they were convicted, they threw the table upside down in the courtroom. And one of the jurors was so horrified. She said, no, that's not my verdict. She was scared. I said, okay, I get that. I guess I get that. So he confirms the verdict first. So then the jurors can't later subsequently say, no, it wasn't my verdict. I said, but okay, that part I understand. I've never seen that before, but I get it. But what about the thing about confirming a verdict and not guilty verdict? That's never done. It's not procedural. He goes, no, I've never done that before. Were you in the courtroom yesterday when you did that? Like, what do you mean you didn't do it before? It was like, I was just playing with you. I was like, oh my God. Because if you see that video, and I've watched that part of the video where the jury has the verdict sheet and they're confirming it, and I'm just not processing it because it's never happened to me before. So I'm thinking something's wrong here. You see the whole defense table. I'm swaying back and forth like Rain Man or something. I'm just like rocking. has this frown on his face. Rocky's just frozen. Sarah Kaplan looks like she saw a ghost. It's just it was not. It was a scary few minutes, I will tell you. That's why it made it even more, I think, exhilarating when that happened.